As experts continue investigating the mysterious vaping-related illnesses that have made hundreds of people across the U.S. sick, NBC is reporting that some vapers are now seeking relief from their nicotine addiction by turning back to regular old cigarettes or even taking them up for the very first time. Dr. John Torres is with me now. And Dr. John, it's just scary to think that people are taking up cigarettes as an alternative. We know a lot of people quit them to start to move to vaping because they thought it was healthier. What does it say about the fact that they're maybe going back to cigarettes?
And I don't think this is a surprise to any experts you talk to who know anything about nicotine addiction.
Yeah.
And it's something for a couple of years people have been saying, hey, wait a minute, we're hearing a story about these vaping devices being used to try and get people off cigarettes. But what happens if they get addicted to nicotine because of the vaping devices? Where do they go from there? And it looks like now, because of all the stories we're putting out there about vaping and how there's a lot of unknowns, there's a lot of knowns that are dangerous, people are getting off them, but the only way they can get off them is by going to cigarettes, other forms of nicotine. And we do know that cigarettes have their own health issues, very bad health issues, and so that's not a good way to go.
Look, the bottom line here is you're saying this is about nicotine addiction. So for people who are saying, all right, you don't want me vaping because that's bad for me. Cigarettes we know are bad. What do I do?
So the best thing you can do is get off cigarettes, get off the vaping devices to begin with, and that means breaking that nicotine addiction, which is one of the hardest addictions to break.
Yeah.
If you talk to smokers, former smokers will tell you that was really hard to do. There's nicotine patches, there's nicotine gum, there's different types of medications that seem to help, biofeedback, hypnosis, those types of things seem to help. But the bottom line is if you talk to people who did break the nicotine habit and they did end up getting off of cigarettes, they tell you that keep trying over and over and over again, and at some point their brain actually switches from being a cigarette smoker or somebody who's addicted to nicotine to all of a sudden they want nothing to do with it.
Really?
And that's when they can break the habit. It's just a matter of trying, and each time they try, they're going to be more likely successful until they finally get to that point where they quit.
All right, so don't give up. Keep going.
Exactly.
Keep going after it.
That's the message.
So, Dr. John, look, I know a lot of people are shying away because we keep talking about these mysterious vaping illnesses. Do we have any clearer of a picture of what's going on with these illnesses?
And Allison, we really don't. And we're honing in more and more on what's happening, and the experts are looking at it. A lot of things are happening around the country right now. There's a lot of places that are starting to ban flavored cigarettes, e-cigs. Other places are starting to ban e-cigarettes altogether. And different states, different cities are coming in. The president last week talked about how he's going to ban flavored e-cigarettes to try and get them away from kids. And we do know that teens in particular are really jumping on the e-cigarette bandwagon, and that's what really has a lot of people concerned. So right now, we do know it's causing a lot of issues. Right now, we don't know what's exactly causing those issues because they can't pinpoint one device, one ingredient, one liquid that's doing it all. And so a lot of unknowns right now, and that's the scary thing.
Some people aren't just vaping flavors or nicotine type things. They're using CBD and other substances as well. And we know there could be a separate set of health-related risks there. Could you talk about that a little bit? So
with THC, we know, and that's what we talked about last week, there's that oil in the THC that was causing some issues, and that lipoid pneumonia that is unfortunately killing people across the country.
Is that vitamin E?
That's the vitamin E oil we're talking about. With CBD, there's even something a bit more scarier happening. What they did is the Associated Press actually went in there and they examined some CBD pods that are used, or cartridges that are used for vaping. They looked in those cartridges and found out some of them didn't have CBD. Instead, they had synthetic marijuana, K2 or spice.
Oh, that's serious stuff.
K2 or spice is very serious and can be very dangerous and deadly. It can cause seizures, it can cause breathing problems, it can cause nausea, vomiting, headache, all sorts of things, paranoia, hallucinations. And so you won't know if you're getting CBD if it truly has CBD or if it might have one of these other ones. And they found a large percentage of them had this K2 or spice. Part of the reason is because CBD is very expensive to process. The synthetic marijuana, not so expensive. Some of them even had fentanyl in them as well, which coming from China can be very inexpensive. And so they think it's a profit thing. They're trying to put those ingredients in there, making people think they're CBD, and they're making money because they don't have to pay for CBD.
Dr. John, some real serious side effects there, though. It seems across the board, no matter what you are vaping or using in an e-cigarette, seems like the advice should be to stay away.
The advice should be stay away. If you are vaping right now and you need to break the habit, while you're trying to get to the point where you can stay away, definitely buyer beware. CDC said don't get anything off the street. Don't get any cartridges that have been hacked. I think that's perfect news to put out there and perfect information. And try and break the habit as best you can.
All right, Dr. John, thanks so much for the warnings and the advice. We appreciate it.
You bet.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.